I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with a very talented author. Her name is Kelley, and she has written a very powerful book. It is a book on child abuse and how it impacts one's life. She knows firsthand because she is a survivor, and this is her story. The name of the book is Lily Girl, based on true events. We're happy to have this very compelling author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Sweet Spire Literature Management for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and, more importantly, purchasing this amazing book. Thank you so much for joining us here today, love.
Hi. Hi. Thank you.
My pleasure. It is a very powerful book, as I mentioned. Was it hard for you to write? Was it hard for you to put this story down on paper?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It honestly took me almost 10 years to finish the book. Um, a lot of it just had to do with having the time to do it.
Hmm.
And it wasn't hard. There was parts that were hard because they were difficult to relive, I guess you could say. But writing it was really fulfilling for me. I am a writer. I've always written. I've always, since I was a child. We always used, me and my sister used to write short stories and things, and it just stayed with me. So I've always been. It's always been in my heart to become an actual writer, and I would love to get some sort of book deal if I could, to write
Hmm.
books because that's what I want to do for a living. But being able to do it like that is something that the right person has to read your stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Right, but
So
your
I'm
work is
hoping,
out there now, which is terrific because it might
yeah,
wind up in the right person's hand. It's a
right.
very compelling story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the story, about what you wanted to share with the readers?
So when I was adopted, and I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, uh, there was a boy that I went to school with who lived about a few blocks away from my house. And I guess his father didn't work until the afternoon, but my mother worked early, so his father would be the one that would drive us to school. And I was only in preschool. I was 4 years old.
No.
And what happened was he would always put his son in the back, and I would always sit up front with him. And more than one time, he would have me sit close to him, and he would started to put his hands up under my dress and in my underwear and things and fondle me. So I did, I'm 4 years old. I have no idea what's going on. And of course, I didn't tell my mother because, back those days, 1976 wasn't a time when parents were like, hey, someone touches you. It just
Right.
wasn't like that back then. That's 50 years ago. So, but what happened was when I became about 6 or 7 years old, I started to become overweight. And
Mhm.
then I turned into the fat kid. So I
Mhm.
had barely any friends because I was the fat kid. And then as I grew older, I started to, have a thing with boys. I liked the boys, but boys didn't like me because I was a fat girl. But I ended up meeting somebody when I was 16 who became my first husband.
Mhm.
But he didn't have a lot. He was practically homeless, and but he paid attention to me. So that's what happens to children, to females who get molested, is they grow up believing that it's their duty to take care of a man. And that's what happened was I ended up taking care of him. He barely worked. And then about a year after we got together, when I was 17, he started to physically abuse me.
Mhm.
And again, I wasn't even 18 years old yet. I wasn't even an adult. So uh, this was another thing that was difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But But it ended up being hit with him for 12 years. I had two children with him. My children watched him beat me up a lot. He was very violent with me. But as I told you before, now me and him are actually very close. I forgave him because his mother was the person that caused him to be abusive to me. His mother was very abusive to him.
Mhm.
And men who hate their mothers hate women.
Yeah.
And often men who abuse their wives have problems with their mothers. So that's why I forgave him because his mother was a difficult person.
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving California in the year 2000 and I moved to Ohio because the internet was now a thing and I learned how to chat with people on chat
Mhm.
rooms. And I met a man and I ended up moving to Ohio to live with him and my children.
Mhm.
But he was very for whooping the children. He wanted to whoop my children. And I was still so lost, didn't know what I was doing,
Mm.
had finally gotten away from an abusive person. So I thought this guy was going to be good for me and my kids. He basically gaslit me to convince me that whooping my kids would be the best thing for them. My son ended up going back to live with his father in California, and my daughter ended up staying with me. But I allowed him to whoop her with a belt, and it went on for about 4 years, almost 5 years. So by the time it ended, she was about 10. She
Mm.
was 5 when it started. So again, I'm still in the mindset that I got to take care of this man, not my kids. My kids didn't matter. The man mattered, and it's because of being molested as a child.
Yeah.
Everything that happened to me as an adult, as a teenager, all stemmed from the molestation. Because when females get molested, they become promiscuous, which I was that too. They feel that the man is all that matters, and whatever he needs, he gets. I did everything for him and nothing for my kids, no matter who I was with, their father or anybody after him. So, what also happened with the second man was was became sexually abusive to me. He sexually abused me. And I didn't find out until right before we were going to split, when I was finally done with him and finally finished with the abuse of me and my daughter, that I found out that he got molested.
Mm.
Men who get molested end up having a very, boys who get molested end up having a very sick sense of sexuality.
Mm.
And it's all, what they want. It's all what they see. Pornography. He was very big with the pornography. He loved it. He watched it all the time. And he wanted what he saw in the pornography. So he was
Mm.
doing those kinds of things to me. And so now I've gone from a man who was physically abusing me, punching me, hitting me, to a man who's sexually abusing me. And sex is so, so precious, so important in relationships that when it's become abusive, it becomes something that you don't even want to do.
Yeah.
So in 2005, I ended up divorcing him because of me and my daughter. And I just ended up with someone almost a year later,
Mm.
uh, because I just didn't want to be with anybody after what he had done. And the guy I ended up with was on drugs.
Mm.
So he was on methamphetamine because at the time methamphetamine was a thing. So he was on methamphetamine, and I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
So when I finally got rid of him, I ended up
Mm.
getting with someone else who became my third husband, and he's great. He's a wonderful person, and he was actually molested too as a child. So, but he didn't affect him in the ways that it affected my second husband.
Yeah.
But my daughter, a great deal because of the things that I was allowing to happen in my life.
Yeah.
I didn't make her important. I was never there for her. She needed me. All children need their mothers, especially women, females,
Mm.
especially little girls. And I just wasn't there for her. She ended up really raising herself. And there was a period of time when we barely even spoke to each other. She was a teenager, and she'd get up and go to school, come home when it was curfew time, and go to bed and wouldn't even speak, because she was so angry with what I had let happen in both of our lives.
Yeah.
My third husband was the one who saw it, and he's the one who helped me get her back. So he's the one that really, really helped me just fix my life. I
Yeah. Well, I'm
tell people
glad
this
after
man,
all that you did find happiness. You did find a man who was worthy of you and worthy of your
yeah,
love. And I think your
yeah,
story, really does shine light on the phenomenon of abuse and how it does carry on from generation to generation, that it's
right,
a tough cycle to break. And
right,
I
and
guess that's why you shared your story. You want others
right.
to
I
realize that
wrote,
other people
I
have
wrote
gone
it
through the
for
same
her.
things.
Yes, I wrote it for her. But the other thing is, in the book, the way that I designed the chapters was present, past.
Mm.
So chapter one is the present, chapter two is the past. Every other chapter, you're in a different time period. It was during a summer that me and my husband's from Alabama. We went to Alabama for his family reunion. And what happened was he ended up losing his job because he went on this trip. We got stuck in Alabama for almost 3 months.
Mm.
And so I started writing the book. What happened was me and her got into an argument over the phone. At the time, she was 17. She had had
Mm.
a daughter too. She had a baby when she was just barely 17. So this was the summer after her daughter was born in November. So this was the summer after her daughter was about 6 or 7 months when this happened. But a friend of ours was staying so she could drive her to school because she was still in high school when she had this baby. So me and her got into an argument over the phone, and she ended up hanging up on me. And that's when I said, I'm going to write a
Yeah.
book. I had my laptop with me when I was on my trip. I just started writing the book because I had nothing else to do. I was stuck in Alabama. We
Yeah.
ended up getting home, but she she really told me about myself and really told me, you know what, you never were my mom. You were never a mom to me. You were never there for me. And she really, really put it in my heart that, wow, you did not do this girl right. And my son too, because my son went back to live with his father. So in a way, both of them suffered because of me. But us being in Alabama over that summer was like, I wasn't there for her. My friend was there, but she wasn't me. She was my friend. So it was a very tough time for her. But when you read the book, you'll see how the chapters are situated to where it's, the first chapter, like I said, is the present time, and the next one is the past, and it all took place in 2012, and I finished writing the book in 2022, so it took me 10 years.
Right.
But there was a problem with the publishing, and we had to get it redone. So it's been almost a year since they originally published it. They had to fix it. Things had gone wrong, so it's been 11 years now. But um, I really, it was just, I knew I had to change and start being that mother for her, even though she was a teenager, even though she was almost out of high school.
Well, we all need our mother at every age, even if you're 17 years old and beyond. These are lessons that Love Kelley learned, and she has put them into a book, a powerful book. It is called Lily Girl, based on true events. It's a very, very compelling story. It highlights childhood abuse, sexual abuse. It's very, very tough to read at times. It is recommended by the Spotlight Network. I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time until next time on Spotlight.